Hello, happy Father's Day, and hope everyone is having a good Father's Day. And I hope everyone's also ready for another installment in the series I like to call Underrated Throwers. Today we got a special treat, Romas Ubartas, former Lithuanian record holder, gold medalist at the 1992 Olympics, and a severely underrated thrower, mostly because he was kind of overshadowed by Virgilius Alekna, not his son, which is currently throwing right now, but the legend himself, Virgilius Alekna, who basically became goated a couple years after this. But he is an Olympic gold medalist. I will list all his accomplishments and personal records and his height and weight if I can find them in the video description. But for right now, let's take a couple looks at his throw in regular motion, and then we'll break it down. This is his winning throw at the 1992 Olympics. Now, I chose him, one, because, well, I mean, he is an Olympic gold medalist, and really nobody talks about him that much. It could be because, well, he didn't really, well, I don't think he was a 70-meter thrower. He was obviously through far enough to win the Olympics. But, okay, let's break it down. Let's see what makes this a winning Olympic throw. I forget how far this throw is. If I can find out, I will list it in the description. But this is very, what I like to call 90s, 80s style. Winds super far back, has a very closed right arm. I'm sorry, left arm. Is pretty on balance in terms of both. His weight is equally distributed with both legs. He's not like winding to one side. And he's going to keep that left arm closed. Normally, you'll see a lot of people nowadays like to keep this left arm with their left side and use it kind of like a guide, or even get farther ahead like a Tom Walsh. But, I mean, people also do this, like Tripp does it, and a lot of you rarely see it nowadays in discus. Valerie Allman does this to an extent out of the back and through the throw. But what I really like about him is how much like flexibility and going. Sorry for this low quality. It is 1992. This is the highest quality I could get of a good throw from him. So, as you can see, well, I hope you can. Oops. His left foot is already facing that way, and his right is on the ground. Normally, people would be picked up, like the right foot would be picked up by now and in the air, but he does a really good job of staying grounded. And this style of throw, the whole point is to really just keep the right arm back. Well, the throwing arm as far back as possible, and basically just locking it there while keeping your left side closed, where your left side on your upper body closed, and basically just stay grounded as long as possible. So then you just have a continuous wrap through the throw. And I mean, it works. I mean, obviously he won a gold medal in the Olympics, and he obviously, I'm assuming, threw over 66 meters, so he was obviously a really good thrower. But where was I? Oh yeah. So back to this. So he has a really, really nice groin flexibility to be able to do that. Not many people can actually hit this position where your right foot's still on the ground and your left foot is still like almost completely turned. See, he picks up right there, gets his foot pretty turned. Now, the problem with this with keeping your left arm in is he kind of shoots his hip back. So he has like this diagonal position, which is okay, but it's not optimal. I would like to see that left arm be in line with the left knee and the left armpit to be over the left knee. So then he's more stacked. So then when he comes out of the back, he would be... Alright, let me go back. He would be here where the green line is instead of over here. And this position right here is going to cause problems in the front of the ring, in the middle. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say... Well, yeah, in my opinion, they're problems that I think he could have improved on. I mean, he does land in positions, obviously, to throw far, but these are just my opinions with a little, like, modern-day throwing knowledge. But the reason I want him to be more stacked and not get this super big angle with his hip and knee and ankle relationship is because, like, you can't really sprint that far. Like, you can't really sprint that hard when your body's angled like this. Like, you don't see elite sprinters out of the blocks looking like this. They're pretty stacked. And everything is in a straight line. And because he's like this, he's gonna stray towards this side, so he's losing a lot of energy. Whereas if he got over his left out of the back and was a little more stacked, he could go a lot more linear through the ring, land in the middle, and attack a lot more linearly. So and he wouldn't be in the air so much, and he would just hit position sooner, so he'd be able to put more energy into the disc. But we'll continue. Another thing that kind of saves this, and the reason why people can get away with this kind of position, is you have to have a pretty short sweep leg, which means, like, it's not long. Like, I know it's hard to see, but, like, this is basically the distance between both his feet. And because he does that, he's able to land kinda in the middle. Like, he gets a really nice... Like, I love this position. I would just like it... Like, he should have been down by now. So, everything's kind of delayed because of that angle he gets out of the back. Because this is the middle of the ring, and he's over here. But what I really like most about this throw is this position where his right foot is facing the back of the ring, just totally turned. And that's part of the reason he can get away with this kind of throw. So because he's delayed everything, if he were to land right now, it would take so long for his left leg to ground into the front. But because he stays in the air just that little bit longer and like whips his right knee around and is able to put that right foot facing facing the back of this the ring, it speeds up everything. So now his hips are more turned because he did that in the air while going forward just enough. So now he's landing super far back, really nice position, and is able to get a really nice whip on it. He does kind of fall away from it just because he is traveling this way. But I think for discus, especially, I think it's very, very good, especially if you're kind of tall. Or I shouldn't even say that. It's just I just think this is the best position. People will say, "Oh, you just want to ground as soon as possible and like turn as much as possible to the finish." But I don't agree with that, because if he were to say land right there and his foot's facing that way, think of how much time he'll have to turn and how much wasted energy that is while his left foot, he waits for his left foot to ground in the finish. Whereas if he's already basically turned in the position he wants with his right leg, all he has to do, the second his left foot lands, he's already facing this way. So everything in his upper body, this delays your upper body. So all he has to do now is just turn into a super strong block. And it's just a lot faster than if he were to just land a little earlier, but with not the same hip curl. So that way it would just take so much time, and he would slow down. But I mean, the other side to it is he doesn't work the ground as long. I mean, the theory behind landing a little sooner with like your foot maybe facing this way is you're on the ground, you're working the ground longer. So you can put more energy into it. But you also have to be super strong and able to pull that off. Otherwise, if you're not strong enough and fast enough to be able to, and patient enough with your upper body to do that technique, it's just going to lend to inconsistent throws and not very far throws. You'll be able to catch like 1 in a million, but you just have to be immensely strong and fast and able to pull off that kind of technique. But you'll see a lot of very, very good discus throwers. Lars Riedel immediately comes to mind, that land in this, and all they do is just left foot land and then boom. They just crank everything into that block. And another thing too, another advantage I believe that this has to hip curling in the air and landing with your foot facing that way, your right foot, is you stay over your right foot a lot better, and there's a lot more weight back. Because there's also a big tendency where when your right foot grounds and your foot's facing that way, there's a higher tendency, to shift into your left, or your non-dominant side, or your non-throwing side, I should say, and get off your right foot or your throwing foot earlier. So, and that way you lose power, you don't work the ground, and it kind of defeats the purpose of everything. So you also have to be super balanced while if you throw like that way, like with not a big hip curl. Well, this, you can get away with not being as balanced because this forces you to keep weight on your right. It's very hard to not do that. So you can get away with not landing as balanced. And it lets you get away with a lot of stuff. Like, say, just off the top of my head, going this way instead of forward. or in a straight line out of the back and swaying to one side. This is what really saves the throw and why he's still able to land back. Because normally what would happen if you stray this way is you land pretty open with your upper body and you're not able to generate a lot of power. But because he does that hip curl, he's able to get his left foot down faster in a pretty wrapped position. Like, he catches it back there, like, that's really good. And he's able to still finish pretty on balance and hit a really nice block. Again, you can always tell if you have a really good block, usually, if on a reverse, if a left foot, well, your block foot, like, okay, wait, where your block leg lands, when you reverse, it should replace it. So that's pretty close to a good block. The reason it wasn't is because, I mean, he kind of fell away from it just because a lot of his weight was going this way, just because of what he did out of the back. So he wasn't able to get everything into that throw that he could have, but it didn't really matter. It was good enough to win the Olympics. So, yeah, I hope you guys learned something about. It's like a lot of people don't really focus on where the foot is actually facing in the middle. But it's a very important thing. And the back of the ring can cause what happens there. But generally speaking, as long as you're quick enough and fast enough. Now, the other thing to be careful of, and one of the downsides to going and doing a hip curl in the air, is people will tend to confuse that with jumping out of the back instead of driving forward and actually sprinting to actually, like, you know, kind of spin in the air. But that's not what you want to do. The whole point of doing this is this motion happens in a very short amount of time, which you have to be, like, I wouldn't even say fast, just super flexible and have your timing down really nice. So this isn't like a beginner kind of thing to do, because you have to have already pretty sound technique to actually work on something like this, because it can lend to a lot of bad habits, like jumping and just staying in the air too long, which could lead to being super open and not throwing up far in the back, like in the front. So you want to make sure when you do this kind of like a genuine like hip curl where your foot's facing the front, or the back of the ring, is you still want a linear sprint. Like, you still want to sprint forward, not up. All the difference is you're just gonna raise your hips in the air like slightly, but only your, I shouldn't even say that, not your hips, your right hip is gonna kind of like how you mount a horse. When you think about it, like I don't even know how I'm gonna describe that, but like basically, so I don't know how to, you know, like if you swing your leg around a horse, so your one leg is straddled onto like one side of the like saddle or whatever, which can be thought of as your left leg grounded. But then you swing up and at an angle with your right leg to get over the horse, so you're saddled. And it's kind of that same motion where you go like, or like this kind of stops. Well, not stops, but your left side is pushing while your right hip goes around and up. So you're still going linear, but your right hip is going up and around, but all your force is still going linear. I don't know if that makes sense. I realize as I said that, that's a really bad... Well, that is a good analogy, but it's hard to show in this kind of format. It's much easier just to demonstrate. But, if you guys got it, more power to you. It makes sense, yeah. I mean, that's the way I was taught it. That was the analogy that worked for me. Even though I don't ride horses, but, you know, watch a movie. I don't know. But I don't know why I'm talking. Why am I talking about horses? Okay. Back to Romas Ubartas. But yeah, sorry I went off this tangent. Sorry. Well, I'm not sorry I went on that tangent. Actually, that was actually a very important technical thing that a lot of people get confused on. But hits a really strong block, stays grounded. He does a really good job of doing a non-reverse reverse. And what I mean is he's not jumping up in the air. He just does a really nice non-reverse and then just switches his feet, which is, to me, a really optimal way. Like, well, that's how you're supposed to do a reverse. Is basically just crank your hip into a very solid block until your right foot or your throwing foot does basically like can't turn anymore, and it will be in the air, and then you catch yourself. It's like the same kind of feeling like when you're like leaning forward and you just keep leaning forward, and then there's that moment where you feel yourself gonna fall and you put a foot out to catch you. That's basically like the same concept as a reverse. You know, like, I don't know if you watch, like, Michael Jackson, like, Smooth Criminal. When he does, like, the lean. So think about that motion. And then you have to put, like, but, you know, like, normal people, you'd have to put your foot out to, like, stop you from just face planting on the floor. And it's the same kind of concept. You basically are just on the ground, fighting everything. Fighting gravity. Until you have to. And it's the same kind of thing. You basically work the ground as long as you absolutely can. And then until you're forced to reverse. So you should never force the reverse. Like sometimes when you accidentally reverse, those are sometimes your best reverses. Just because, like if you're working on a non-reverse and you accidentally reverse, as a coach, I would be super happy with that, because 9 times out of 10, that's usually what you want. That's usually like why you're having them do a non-reverse, is to make your reverse stronger. And if you like accidentally do that, chances are it's going to be a really good reverse, because you did it correctly and you didn't just jump in the air. So yep, and then really sticks it, kind of almost like a glide, very Wolfgang Schmidt reminiscent, this kind of reverse, which in my opinion, he probably has one of the best finishes. Don't take it from me. Gert Cantor said that, Vastinus Dyson has said that, I mean, Mac Wilkins has said that. I mean, yeah, this is proven time and time again. This is the best way to reverse. This concept of just staying grounded as long as possible, just turning through it, and you're just getting that little extra bit of lift at the very end. Okay, but, yep, once again, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Happy Father's Day. Again, I'll list all his accomplishments and everything, and his height, weight, if I can find them. I sometimes have a hard time finding these guys' height and weight. And I'll also list his personal best. And, yep, happy Father's Day.